Tomaso here, and welcome to the module called Roadmap to Your Desired Future. This module has one clear objective, and that is to establish your strategic roadmap that will propel you towards your desired future state, where you see yourself in 3 to 5 years from now. And whether that is becoming a top performer in product management, delivering the most high-end and complex projects, or yourself having your business consulting firm delivering high-end consulting services, or something else entirely. Whatever your ambitions are, this will be your North Star and companion on that journey, ensuring that you stay on track and make the right decisions moving forward towards your desired future. The strategic roadmap will work wonders for you, just as it has for so many others, just as you implement it correctly. And how do you implement it correctly, you may wonder? Well, that is exactly what we dive into over the next 4 sessions. During these sessions, you will learn about the methodology, how to create your strategic roadmap, and finally how to best implement it. But before jumping into the methodology, let me explain what the concept actually is. The strategic roadmap framework, which is by now a well-proven concept that I've used on many occasions to help individuals, teams, and businesses to gain clarity of direction in a very straightforward way, pragmatically seeing how to achieve your long-term vision and goals. The reason I originally created this framework was to help a large enterprise customer back in 2019, where they had clarity of vision and of operations. But as a large organization with many ongoing projects and initiatives, they needed to have some sort of strategic plan, which they could relate to, knowing whether a project that was being delivered was actually contributing to the vision or not. And that was when I first developed and introduced the strategic roadmap framework, which fundamentally is built around a well-known management tool called the Radar Chart. The purpose of the framework is to support the translation of a vision into an actionable roadmap with clear targets and goals along the way. And it became a great success, especially once the whole organization had gotten familiar with it, so it could be used in their every 3-month planning cycles. Since then, I met a number of other clients that had the similar challenges where the strategic roadmap framework was introduced, providing the same positive outcome, basically. But it wasn't until 2022 I thought of the idea of to test it on individuals. Since it provided such a positive outcome on business level, I realized that we as product managers, entrepreneurs, and business people, we struggle with basically the same issues and challenges, but on a smaller scale. As an entrepreneur, you have a vision for your business or venture, but you may not have clarity on how to actually achieve it or how to get there. What are the right things to do here and now that will drive my business in the right direction? And as an employee, it's easy to focus primarily on the target and goals of the company. But what about your own goals, your own ambitions as an individual for your own life and career? Not having a plan or a roadmap for yourself is basically leaving it up to chance, right? But creating a plan for your own life can feel like quite a daunting task that's easy to deprioritize and a typical do it later kind of challenge. So then to have a framework that provides a clear step-by-step instruction on how to get such a plan in place could be quite a valuable, at least. So I thought. So I tried it out on one entrepreneur I was coaching at the time, and since the strategic roadmap at that point in time was delivered and tailored specifically to work for a large enterprise business, I had to make some adjustments to make it better suited for a small business, or as in this case for an individual. And it started off paying off very quickly, actually. It gave me focus on the right things. He gained some serious momentum, so he could raise his ambitions on some long-term goals, so that within 6 months of using it, he had already proceeded to achieve more within that period of time than he had done for the previous 2 years. And was that because the plan was so amazing, it made him develop into a whole new person? Obviously not, but it did provide clarity of priorities and what to do and what not to do. That made him launch forward with this sort of tremendous speed. And that's really what I want for you here today, to give you a step-by-step instruction to the framework in order to create a clear path towards your desired future state, and to kickstart you in that direction with clarity of mind. So what's the target for this module? It's to create a strategic roadmap to achieve your desired future state. So by the end of this module, you have created your first version of your strategic roadmap. And in doing so, you have taken a very important step in the realization of your dreams, which isn't too bad. The module has been divided into 4 different sessions, where the first one is Strategic Roadmap Introduction, which is this session, in which you will learn the fundamentals of the framework, specific terminology being used, and we'll look into some real life or some real life examples of the finished product. Then in session 2, we'll start preparing your roadmap template, so it contains all the vital information and structure to serve as your what you need in order to populate it later on, basically. Then in session 3, we will populate your template with the actual content in order to have the first version of your strategic roadmap ready for deployment. And then in session 4, that's when we finally implement it to make sure your journey towards success starts right away. So if we look at session 1, it has 4 parts. The strategic roadmap introduction will start by going through some of the fundamental terms being used in the glossary. These are fairly common words when working with strategic material, so it's good to be familiar with those, not only for this specific purpose, but working with strategic material in general. Then we will look at the finished product can look like by reviewing some customer examples. And even though the specific customer-specific information will have been blurred out, obviously, it will still give you the basic understanding for what it looks like when you have implemented it and start working with it. The roadmap creation process, that's where you need to start to pay close attention, as we now move into the concrete steps of how to create it and what you have to bring to the table in order to make it work and support you in the best possible way. And finally, we look at the templates so that you get familiar with these. Glossary. Actually, before jumping into the glossary, let me spend a minute or two on the strategic work itself. Strategic work sometimes get a bad reputation that people working with it are detached from the reality in the business in which they operate, and that they are creating fancy ideas about what the future should look like with little or no understanding of the challenges in the here and now. This sort of disconnect between the strategy department and the operational business is not uncommon, and in many cases not totally uncalled for, to be honest. Having a fancy strategy without a clear plan or an approach on how to execute it is really not worth that much. And sadly, the disconnect between strategy and operations sometimes makes it very difficult for strategies to really get any traction. I've both seen and experienced companies struggling to find ways on how to realize their strategy when they are fully occupied in taking care of daily operations, and the problem there and the operations and the problems that occur there. And therein lies both the solution and the problem, or the problem and the solution, as I see it. Somehow you need to connect the two so that the work you do in daily operations contributes to the strategy in one or multiple ways. There has to be a link between the strategy and the operational business so that you can determine what contributes to the strategy and therefore should receive continued focus and what doesn't and should ideally be removed or at least reduced. The strategic roadmap framework is that connection between the two. Similar to a large corporation, you can do this for a small or mid-sized company as well as you can do it for an entrepreneur and even an individual with a growth mindset. And why an individual with a growth mindset? Well, if you don't want to grow as a person and learn new skills, there is little point in having a roadmap with goals and targets that will require basically exactly that at any given time. So anyway, coming back to some key terminology I will be using, and therefore it's important that you understand. We have the strategic roadmap, strategic focus area, strategic initiative, strategic milestone, and key performance indicator, or KPI, which is the more common acronym. Starting with the strategic roadmap. Strategic roadmap is a visual representation or plan that outlines the key milestones and timelines required to achieve your long-term goals and objectives and strive towards your vision, ensuring that all activities are strategically focused and progress is tracked over time. That's the The formal definition of a strategic roadmap in plain English, it means by having a strategic roadmap established, you have a huge advantage in your journey towards the success you seek, and it will help you plan and prioritize your work and make the right decisions and keep track of your progress towards your long-term goal and desired state. Maybe that wasn't that much simpler, but it will all become clear once you see it. Strategic focus area, a key aspect of priority within your life that requires concentrated attention to achieve its goals. It represents a critical domain where efforts are directed to drive significant progress. All right. I'm fully aware that these formal definitions can sometimes sound a bit abstract, but I can assure you that it will become clear once you see some example of how it's actually done, where the strategic focus area have been defined. So for now, just settle for the fact that these are important and you will soon understand why. Strategic initiative. A strategic initiative is a specific high-priority project or initiative that you undertake. These initiatives are aligned with your strategic roadmap and are designed to drive significant progress in your strategic focus areas. So now the places are gradually coming together. These are initiatives that are typically delivered as projects or in project format and are aligned with your vision and long-term goal, meaning their objective is always to move you closer to it. And then we have the strategic milestone, a significant and measurable achievement or goal that marks progress within your strategic roadmap. This is a key component of the strategic roadmap framework, and one that you will certainly need to work with over time to fine-tune and make them work perfectly for you. It's not easy to set the right level and timing of each milestone straight out of the gate. Actually, it's more or less impossible. You need to define different levels of speed and difficulty to see what makes sense to you, and defining milestones that, because put it this way, defining milestones that are too easily achievable might become a short-term gratification because it feels good when you're hitting them one by one. But on the downside is that obviously achieving your long-term objective or goal will become a longer journey. On the flip side, setting too aggressive or difficult milestones that may look good on paper but in reality turns out to be attainable will result in delays and pushed milestones, and that can easily demotivate you and in your strive towards success. So finding that sort of sweet spot for setting the milestones on just the right level where they are aggressive enough to push you into constant action, but still remain attainable, is key to making the strategic roadmap a great partner for you and navigator. Key performance indicator, or KPI, is a progress measuring stick. It's a measurement to quantify your progress towards your goals and guide future actions. When you have defined the right KPIs for your strategic roadmap, these will give you an extremely valuable information how well you're actually doing. And lagging behind on a specific KPI can be a very valuable insight that you most likely need to focus more attention on projects that will support this particular KPI. Likewise, overperforming on a different KPI mean that you could probably reduce your efforts on projects that support this particular KPI in order to allow to shift some energy and time to areas where it's more needed. That said, KPIs are reactive measurements of actions already taken. So if you have to choose where to put your focus initially, I would definitely recommend focusing on getting strategic milestones on the right level first. Getting those right is much more important than working out the perfect KPI setup in the very beginning. All right, let's look at the terminology just explained and put it into practice. First out is the strategic roadmap. As mentioned earlier, it uses the radar chart foundation, and that's what we're looking at here right now. Similar to a radar chart, you are in the center, or rather the future version of you, your desired state, and surrounding on the circle that represents time. Starting with the big circle, the big white section, which is the current year split into every quarter, followed by the gray section, which is the second year and the year after, split in two halves, and finally the smallest white section, which is the year 3. In the margins, we have the strategic focus areas, and here we have the 3 strategic focus areas: product management at the top, business at the bottom left, and then personal at the bottom right. Spread out in between are the strategic milestones, which are the significant targets or goals that needs to be achieved at a specific point of time in order to move you closer towards achieving your desired state. With that explained, let's look at a couple of real-life examples of the strategic roadmap. First one was developed together with a large enterprise customer and the management team of that consumer sales organization. Their challenge was having an impressive strategic documentation package that was covering over 60 slides, and they needed to translate this into a format in which they could execute on. And which the organization could actually understand and take on board and contribute to. And after all, there are many examples of strategies remaining shelf product not being used, which is really a waste of time and energy. But more importantly, it can damage the company quite significantly, as without a joint plan, departments may end up rowing in opposite direction and leaving the business at a standstill, or worst case, a decline. So getting the strategic direction and the roadmap on how to deliver is quite important. Now compare this with the clarity of mind that you have of your own vision and dreams, what your future should look like and how clear your plan is to achieving all this. If your vision of your own future is not clear, how would you actually know when you have achieved it or reached it? And if your vision is clear, but you don't have a plan in place on how to get there, it's equally a big of a question mark how you'll actually end up getting there at the end. However, it's difficult, not to say impossible, to outline the entire journey in one go, since you have no idea what the future looks like and what will happen along the road. But knowing what you need to do here and now today, and knowing that is the right thing to do in order to move you closer and in the right direction is of paramount importance. And that's where the strategic roadmap comes in. So back to my client. Introducing the strategic roadmap framework to them was spot on. Although the roadmap itself looks quite busy at first glance, you have to bear in mind that this is a management team consisting of 10 people. So each of them will be one person held accountable for their part of the plan. So all in all, maybe one person is only responsible for like 5 to 8 milestones, which in this roadmap is definitely manageable. We can see it's divided into 6 strategic focus areas with all targeting the vision in the center. And due to previous reasons, I can't really go into the detailed content of it, but it gives you an idea of what it looks like and for a very large organization when actively used as the primary strategic vehicle for driving the organization forward towards their wanted position in the market. Let's look at another example. This one is under development together with a customer I would define as a corporate entrepreneur, meaning he has a high position within the corporate arena and he wants to expand his footprint to become a thought leader within his domain. To achieve this rather ambitious objective, there are, I should say, several key aspects we need to take into account, such as he had the idea of becoming an author and publish some literature, and becoming a keynote speaker at certain key events, and being a trusted advisor to and so on. So the strategic roadmap helped him to achieve clarity around this, which key events he needed to target, and then lay out a plan on what he needed to do in order to gradually increase the likelihood of receiving an invitation to speak at those events. Same for the book. Having the ambition to publish a book is great, but you need a clear plan ahead on the key pillars of achieving this, such as finding the right publisher, defining go-to-market strategy, launch plan, have a clear targets around how much he needs to write by when in order to have it finished at a certain date, forums to promote it in, and so on and so on. His challenge was by no means a lack of energy or ideas or commitment or competence. I would say he probably had a top rating in all of these, but he did lack some clarity of focus. And his vision was at the beginning a little bit blurry in lack of better words. So together with him, we sharpened the vision so that he could really see the future self, what he was aiming to become, and by other means gaining clarity around his desired future state. But once we had that defined, we could look at the different initiatives he had already ongoing to determine which of these were actually promoting him in the wanted direction and to what degree. And that last bit is actually quite important. To what degree? Doing right things is of course better than doing the wrong things, but you may find out that you are working on many things that are actually promoting the right direction, but some will have larger and positive impact than others. So first we need to identify whether initiative is good or bad, but we then should also prioritize between the good ones to find out the best promoters of your vision. It's always better to do a few things and do them really well, rather than trying to do too much and leaving everything half-baked. You can see this in a very concrete way on his strategic roadmap. Some areas are left completely or fairly empty and at this stage, and this doesn't mean that they are not important. They wouldn't be on the roadmap if they weren't important. It does, however, mean that they are not as important as focusing time and energy on the other focus areas right now. A year or two from now, it might be a completely different picture where they are filled with milestones and the other areas are more or less left empty. So remember that the aim is not to have a business chart that looks impressive. You're not doing this to impress someone else in how busy or hectic your life is, showing it off and having a strategic roadmap full of clutter. That is a very effective way of not achieving your long-term goals at the end. You will become lost in what to prioritize, and the strategic roadmap will just serve as a constant reminder and a bad conscience of things you never achieved. So keep it simple and keep it clean. Roadmap creation process. There are 3 stages of the roadmap creation process. In stage 1, we prepare your version of the roadmap template. In stage 2, we populate your roadmap with your key milestones. And finally, in stage 3, we implement it so it takes off and becomes part of your daily routine and personal planning. So what's the scope of each stage? We look more in depth what they contain. Stage 1 of the Prepare Your Roadmap, there are 4 key activities that serve as input when preparing your roadmap. First one being defining your vision and goal, or decide state, as I like to call it. To define this is crucial, and in the next session we will look into how to actually do this. In low periods and when in doubt, this will be your constant reminder of what you're aiming for and will make you keep pushing you forward. So it's essential to get it right, and that it's a future state that you actually want, and not something that you put together because it's sounds right or because you think what's expected of you. It has to be something you actually burning for and really want to achieve. Secondly, we need to define your focus area. These are not important to get exactly right from the start. We can define some focus areas that make sense and they can actually be fairly generic. And then you can alter and refine these once you get more familiar with the framework concept and have starting to work with it over time. Thirdly, we look at the KPIs. To track your progress towards your desired state, you need to have some tangible measurements in place. Preferably, you identify some straightforward KPIs that you can easily track and tells you what you need to know. We will look closer into this in the next session as well. Step 4 and final, you will now be ready to populate your roadmap template. In order to populate the roadmap with milestones and targets that make sense, you need to identify your key initiatives first. These are projects, initiatives, or even major tasks that you need to do in order to drive you towards your desired state. So for instance, if you have a strategic focus area which is defined as self-development, and you have a desired state to become a first-class project manager, you may define a strategic initiative called Develop PM Skills, in which you define the courses you need to take in order to propel you in that right direction. Secondly, we need to define the relevant strategic milestones, and these are actually what you will later put onto the roadmap itself, and as the targets you need to reach at a specific point of time. The strategic milestones are defined for each key initiative, so referring to the example we just mentioned, or the initiative we just mentioned, Develop Your PM Skills, a strategic milestone here could be next level project manager course completed, for instance. That could be a milestone. You will later put the specific milestones onto your strategic roadmap at a certain point of time so you know by when you should have achieved this. So we'll do that in the roadmap later on. Finally, come to stage 3, which is implementing the roadmap in your daily life. This may seem like an obvious and not that difficult step, but it can be difficult from a different perspective. Yes, preparing and populating your strategic roadmap the first time is definitely hard work, and you need to think a lot and be honest with yourself what you actually want to achieve and why. And it's not unlikely that there's some frustration involved in that exercise as well. So in that sense, once you're done with it and you have the first version ready to go, you should definitely feel proud about that. And then the implementation is merely start using it. But I want to give a word of warning here, because starting to work with it right away is actually really important, because you have not created the perfect roadmap by any means from the start. It should be considered more like a draft or a 0.1 version. So when you start working with it, you can really relate to the things that you're actually doing and how quickly you progress and how much time you actually spend on certain initiatives. You will find out if you've been too ambitious in your timeline or too generous on other items. And probably you will find a combination of the two. That's why updating, revising, and fine-tuning your roadmap is along the way is key to making it a trustworthy and reliable companion, so it doesn't become a shelf product never to be seen again. Now, some may argue that if you revise and adjust milestones as you move along, doesn't that actually contradict the very purpose of having a plan? And the short answer to that is no, it doesn't. You have to remember that the strategic roadmap is not a project plan. The primary purpose of the strategic roadmap is to provide a guide in taking the right path towards your desired future state at any given time. And as your surroundings change, as well as your own situation, the strategic roadmap needs to reflect that reality. And you should be able to take the best course of action at any given time. So if you have missed a target in one of your projects, that's a delay and a problem for that project and not for the strategic roadmap. The impact on your roadmap is entirely dependent on the importance of the milestones affected. Maybe you just need to move one milestone and the following ones can be reached over time as planned. And that doesn't really affect the big picture. Or you have to adjust several milestones that will affect the big picture to some degree as well. So implementation is really key. Keeping your roadmap up to date and implement it in a good way is key. Finally, we have the templates, and there are a number of templates provided in this material, and you will be introduced them one by one as you begin working with them. But just to give you an idea of which they are, here is the list. So we have Roadmap Foundation, we have a strategic roadmap, strategic initiative, and milestone tracking sheet, and finally KPI tracking sheet. Key templates. To your help, there are a number of templates provided in the material, and you will be introduced them one by one as you begin working with them. But just to give you an idea of which they are, here's the list. Roadmap Foundation input. The template will be used in the next session to add all relevant information going into the strategic roadmap. Strategic roadmap template, dependent on how many strategic focus areas you will have. There will be a prepared template from anywhere up to from 1 to 8 slices that have been pre-designed. Strategic initiative, this template works really well in order to make you think about what you need to do and why it's important. In that kind of way, it also acts as a qualifier in whether you should do the initiative or not. If the benefits and the contribution to your desired future state is not there, or at least hard to determine, you could argue whether you should actually do it or not. Milestone tracking sheet, this will be your working document once your roadmap has been implemented and you start using it on a regular basis. You will be able to track your progress and make some comments around each milestone, which will serve as a useful log of your progress. KPI tracking sheet, just as the name hints, this is where you keep track of your progress on KPIs. That's it for this session. I hope you feel ready to get cracking with your strategic roadmap. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next session.